Katha was, I don't even know how to describe it. All I know is that me and my friends were in awe of the art, to say the least. Um, and I'm just glad that I didn't miss this tonight.
Katha was an out of body experience for all of us. And I say that not because of the intensity of the story, because of the music, the choreography, that comes secondary. It was the energy we felt as artists on stage. It kind of feels surreal that it's over because it almost feels like it finished before it started. And I think that's the addicting nature of creating these shows because it's like you get into this adrenaline zone, you create the show, you stage it, the audience comes, claps, and then they go away and you're like, it's done, it's over. Like, what do I do now? And it's like that, you get addicted to creating and the process of creation. And I think that's been the most gratifying part of this whole journey. We hope that you experience Katha on stage, but I think it's time to experience the back end madness and what made the magic happen. Shall we start? Katha was a story that we wrote before Jeevan, but we parked it because we were simply not ready for the grandeur of it. And when we started writing it, we were drawing blanks in a lot of spaces. Like there were things and intricacies we couldn't figure out. So, we get into a room, we order some biryani, and we talk about our ideas. And it's a safe space where people throw out ideas on what the story could look like. I'm blessed with something where I do get visions of what I want to stage. So I remember I kept seeing the shadow scene, which was the climax of our show. It's almost like, you get stuck to that vision and then you have to work backwards from it. It was filling in the gaps and finding those nuances that would make the story complete. And it really did come together as a group effort of bringing our experiences with those different stories and how they've impacted us on our personal journeys. The next natural step after you've written a show is casting. It's putting the faces to the names and the characters that you've been imagining. While we were writing the script, the only person I could see playing Jeevan was Akshat. Um, Being his dance partner in the past, I've seen him bring a lot of charm and character to everything that he does. And I needed Jeevan to be that because it was the most crucial part of the story. He was the pivotal character. And that was that. Like, I think I had already casted Akshat without asking him. And then it was the matter of like convincing him to cry on stage and be vulnerable because this character brought out everything. Like, I'm pretty sure he was crying real tears by the end of it.
क्या एक्टिंग नहीं करे अच्छा इंटरव्यू अरे यार पहले Okay, honestly, Katha has been a journey of self-exploration for me. Playing the character of Jeevan was quite complex. Um, each stage of grief required me to understand and act in a different way to express my emotions and show the character's internal struggle. Because when you do it on a camera and when you do it in front of like 300 people, it's completely different. You have to be more expressive in terms of what you're trying to show. If I had to sum up the whole production in one line, I would say Katha wasn't just a performance. Um, it was a shared experience of catharsis.
So we had the central character. But then every single character from Broccoli to Krishna to Ashwatthama to our little Red Riding Hood, Achilles, everyone was very important. And I think what was beautiful is it all fell into place. We met the right people at the right time to make it happen. Indian mythology is what we were most nervous about casting because it was the one that would have related to our South Asian audiences the most, and we wanted to get it right. So in one simple table reading, when Shiv and I were just basically reading out the lines, the dance team ended up casting us in our respective roles, which I think is still the most insane casting that has ever happened. And I looked at them and I looked at myself and I looked at my height and I looked at Shiv's height and I was like, are you kidding me? So, and I also was kind of flabbergasted at the fact that, like, we've never really seen a female Krishna play out like that. So I think that casting and that development was very pivotal to our making.
Acha, by the way, those were the real tears that I saw on the show. रुक करके देखा था. अरे यार देख.
One big feedback that we got from Jeevan was we needed to pay more attention to costumes. And we took that seriously. From importing really beautiful fabrics and clothes all the way from India and getting them hand beaded and created to perfection, to actually collaborating with a student collective here in Calgary, the Aquativity Project, which is led by our very own Nidhi, who happens to wear many, many hats in Madhuban. So she leads this youth-led initiative where they basically take scraps of fabrics and they take everything, be it your tablecloths, shower curtains, your old used clothes that you're never going to wear again, and turns them into fashionable wearable attires. And I'm talking fashion to an extent where we couldn't tell that sari if it was made from a tablecloth or if it was actually like Sabyasachi or something. It looked like I want.
Oh, sorry, I was just putting all my different hats on. So in terms of designing the dresses, it was definitely a process, right from planning all the way to execution. So at the start, Ishita gave me a list of what she wanted, what I was designing for each character. And then from there, I went into creating mood boards for each character to match their theme. So I was looking at colors, moods, the general vibe and feeling that we get when we meet each character. And after all of that was approved, I went and selected all the fabrics. So looking at textures and matching the colors as closely as possible, because again, we are working with recycled material. And then after that, I'm bringing together both of those. So I'm bringing the vision boards and I'm bringing the fabrics, and then I go to my tailor and then I'm like, hey, is this possible? Is it possible to use this fabric to create this design? And then we're sitting in her room, I'm wrapping fabric around myself, and we're visualizing what this would look like once it's a finished product. So even in this process, it was never smooth. There was a lot of back and forth, sitting down with my team and visualizing it again. And when we were finally happy with how the fabrics were going to look like, we would send it off to the tailor, let her do her stitching. And even throughout all of this process, there were a lot of hiccups, and the designs always don't turn out how you wanted, and that's exactly what happened with some pieces of this project. But then my team and I were able to step up and think about how we could problem solve all of these issues so that once we're on stage, we're in front of a camera, that everything is going to go smoothly. I'm extremely grateful for my team and how we pulled through things over the last 4 to 5 months. I was really nervous about show day, but when it came around, everything looked wonderful on stage. And overall, it was such a great experience, and I look forward to working with Madhuban again.
And now, a short commercial break.
So,
if I were to talk about my story and my part in all of this, I would say that I had to do the most work out of the bunch. So sitting back and relaxing was, I think, the hardest part that I had to do. You know, walking around, seeing if the actors were doing their job, the photographers, if they were actually photographing. But as Nidhi's personal assistant, I gotta say that I think I did pull a lot of the weight, but if I had to give anyone credit, it would actually be Nidhi. I saw the stress that girl went through, but for me, that stress was taken away, and it was from my heart. It was from my heart. But you know, all together, watching it at the end, oh my god, it all came to life. And I'd like to say the credit, I would love for it to go to me, but at the end of the day, I guess it can't.
So after costumes and other visuals that we put into the show, what really pulls the show together are the sets. And why I say that is because Katha was at such a grand level. If we didn't have the right sets, it would have fallen apart. We work with a really great local artisan right here in Calgary, Masood Bhai. I like to call him lovingly. And, you know, I call him every time. I'm like, Masood Bhai, I need this. And it'd be a really crazy idea. We had a crazy idea of bringing a tiffin box, like, you know, those Indian tiffin boxes stacked up. And I was like, can you make it 7 feet tall? And can you make sure that rolls? And yep, done. And I was like, okay, so then can we have a rath and like make sure that we can sit on it and we can carry it and we can, you know, do all the beautiful things that we did on stage. And done. And it's like snap of a finger. I'm snapping, you know, it feels like it's a snap of a finger, but it's actually hard work. And I've seen him do it like alone in a warehouse where he's just putting things together. And I still don't know what the trick is on how he develops such big things on his own, but he's super talented and we're super lucky to work with him. The music of Katha actually made Katha more of our own than ever before. And why I say that is because this is the first time Madhuban Music released their own original music. We had the honor of experiencing their genius in every note, in every lyric, in every single harkat, in all those beautiful songs that they created for us. We had given them a narrative, we had given them a story, and now it was in their hands to do magic, and magic they did.
क्या कर रहे हैं हम आज? When Ishita came to me and we were talking about Katha, so she mentioned that this is going to be about an individual who has just lost a loved one and they're going through different stages of grief. So as we were brainstorming, Hassan, who is our guitarist, he comes up with a brilliant idea that what if the song is like a conversation between that individual who is going through grief and the personification of grief itself. And that idea clicked with all of us, and that was basically the Rosetta Stone we were looking for, and from there on we got to work. Grief for me has always been monochromatic, so that's something I also wanted to bring into the music. My idea was not to have any harmony, not to have multiple notes, so the melody actually stays stagnant. We basically spent hours and hours writing, composing, recording, producing, and with every single time we met, we had a different idea. We wanted to make the best song that we can possibly make for the production. To be very honest with you, it was a process, but it was a really good process.
As you know, Madhuban started primarily as a dance group,
And dance is still a very big focus for Madhuban and remains to be one of our strongest pillars. Katha came together with a lot of dancing. All the emotions and all the intricacies were portrayed in our dances. And I think who's better than an actual dancer in the show to tell you how it all went?
So I've been in Madhuban for about 3.5 years or so, and as the time's gone by, you would think that you'd get used to the moves and that things would get easier, and that hasn't necessarily been the case because we keep every year trying to step things up and trying to do even better and trying to come up with more complex moves and sequences, and it always kind of pushes you to step out of your comfort zone, and it's fun to have everyone who kind of values your ideas, and it just feels like you're working with a family rather than, anything else. When the music team and the dance team finally came together to put those two aspects as one part of the performance, there's always some hiccups and some finessing that needs to be done, some timing on the music team's part, some timing on our part, and that's always a little bit stressful because we usually don't have all of the dances and all of the music ready until getting quite close to the show. And so by the time that we come together and are putting those together and are realizing that we still have a decent amount of work to do, I think all of us can feel a little bit of pressure in we all have to work our hardest to make sure that this comes together in the next month or so to come out with a finished production. With a show of this scale, there's always things that could go wrong, and of course, things did, but as a team, we always came together and worked towards improving and fixing those problems, and if anything does go wrong, everybody continues to move forward. The show continues. Everything must go on.
What you saw on stage was only the tip of the iceberg. The real magic actually happens behind the scenes, and the people who make it happen are our backstage managers. They made sure that every costume was placed in the right nooks and corners. They made sure the sets were on stage at the right times, and every lighting cue was perfect. And I don't think we could have done it without them.
1 minute, I just got one more task to finish up and I'll be right back. Yes, that is the costume we are putting on next. So stage managing was managing the flow of the show. So I was kind of the liaison between dance, music, and tech. I think a lot of my role was creating a plan of what Backstage was going to look like, and hopefully if someone wasn't able to be there, someone could pick it up and then continue to run the show. I think I had a slight advantage because I knew the show quite well in and out because I had learned some of the scenes and some of the dances. So it was easy for me to be like, oh, and this is going to happen and this is going to happen. But those little things that you don't think about do add up, and a lot of oh shit moments were happening on the 27th. But despite all these little hiccups, we still managed to pull through, and it was a very successful show. And what can I say? We literally ran that show.
Katha was personally very challenging for me because I was wearing more than one hat. I was a director, an actor, a dancer, and I do think the role of being a director is a very lonely place because you're in a spot where you have to make those calls. And I know there was a moment of time where our team was facing a lot of injuries, physical injuries, and we didn't have some of the key players by our side, unfortunately. And but that's where I think the beauty of directing really comes to play, because it teaches you a lot about how to leverage the positivity that's within you and how to look at the bigger picture rather than getting caught up in the smaller details. While the details matter, I think it's really about the bigger picture. And that's what Katha also taught me. Katha taught me that there's a story bigger than ourselves, that we're not the center of the universe, and that our problems are not the center of the universe. Katha taught me that at the end of the day, we're all living one similar story, one collective story, and that we can draw inspiration from each other and learn and come out of anything, any loss that we've experienced. Our vision can only come to life if we have the right partners on board, and the biggest one being the Grand. I cannot thank the Grand enough for giving us a stage to work with. The oldest theater in Western Canada, and we're so privileged to perform there year after year. I want to thank my friend Jen Kaur personally for bringing Mamster on board as partners. She created this custom culinary experience in our lobby where our patrons got to experience taste of Katha, and each little delicacy was catered to every aspect of our story. And where have you ever seen that before? So thank you, Jen, for making that happen. Finally, I want to thank our funding partners, Calgary Arts Development, without whom this show would not have been possible. They really empower us and enable us to do what we do. Also, I would like to give a big shout out to Navneet Jandu and Tony for making the billboards happen. What a beautiful moment to see ourselves on the big screens all across the city. Thank you for being true supporters. To all the media sponsors and partners who put the word out there and made it a sold-out show, that was an outstanding milestone because it made the news. I would also like to thank all the actors, all the creatives, every single person who was part of the show who I couldn't name in this humble video, but know that you're a very, very important part of our journey, and I cannot wait to work with you again. You are what made Katha possible, so thank you for being part of that big story. Going into this, we knew it had to be bigger and better than before. But it turned out to be something that none of us could expect. And for that, I am grateful.